Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, April 23rd, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-kyan. World leaders of some 40 nations gathered virtually on Thursday to discuss ways to overcome the global climate crisis. There, President Moon Jaein vowed to increase the nation's target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Many of the participating nations, such as the host U.S., as well as EU countries and Japan, also released their new ramped-up goals to cut carbon emissions. However, others, such as China and India, two of the world's worst polluters, made no new commitments. And amid mounting concerns over a resurgence of new infections, South Korea reported close to 800 cases of COVID-19 on Friday, the highest since early January. Our top story today, President Moon Jaein has reaffirmed to other world leaders South Korea's commitment to take part in global efforts to tackle climate change, saying the country will step up its already ambitious goal for reducing carbon emissions. He spoke at the Virtual Leaders Summit on Climate Change Thursday, an event hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden. Our senior Blue House correspondent Kim Min-ji reports.
South Korea will increase its target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or the nationally determined contribution, as part of efforts to enhance the country's climate action to achieve carbon neutrality. President Moon Jaein reaffirmed Seoul's commitment on Thursday during the Virtual Leaders Summit on Climate, hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden.
한국은 2030 국가 온실가스 감축 목표 NDC를 추가 상향하여 올해 안에 유엔에 제출할 것입니다. 한국은 지난해 NDC를 기존의 배출 전망치 기준에서 2017년 대비 24.4% 감축하겠다는 절대량 기준으로 변경함으로써 1차 상향한 바 있습니다.
It's in line with the key Paris Agreement goal to limit global warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. South Korea, the world's seventh largest carbon emitter, declared to go carbon neutral by 2050 and unveiled its Green New Deal initiative to speed up the process. To that end, Moon said it was imperative for the world to scale down coal-powered plants, announcing that the country will end all public financing for overseas coal projects.
신규 해외 석탄 화력 발전소에 대한 공적 금융 지원을 전면 중단할 것입니다. 우리 정부는 출범 후 국내 신규 석탄 화력 발전소 건설 허가를 전면 중단하고 노후 석탄 화력 발전소 10기를 조기 폐지하여 석탄 화력 발전을 과감히 감축했으며 대신 태양광과 풍력 등 재생에너지 발전을 빠르게 늘리고 있습니다.
President Moon, who wore a tie made from plastic waste and with a marine waste-made lapel on his suit, also called for active interest in the P4G Summit on Green Growth and Sustainable Development, which Seoul will host next month. He said South Korea will make thorough preparations so that it provides a platform to create actionable visions to serve as the stepping stone for the success of the UN Climate Change Conference in November. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, following on from that report, we thought we'd show you what other countries had to say. The United States, India, China, and others. While many pledged to ramp up their efforts, such as the EU and Japan, most notably China and India, two of the world's worst polluters, made no new commitments. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
40 global leaders met virtually to pledge for a greener Earth as U.S. President Joe Biden hosted a summit taking the steering wheel once again in the collective efforts to tackle climate change. It includes the U.S.'s goal of cutting carbon emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by the year 2030, before achieving neutrality in 2050.
This is the decade we must make decisions that will avoid the worst consequences of the climate crisis. We must try to keep the Earth's temperature to an increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
This is a rate which is even more aggressive than the country's previous goal during the Obama administration. The European Union said it will cut the emissions by 55% below levels seen in 1990 by the year 2030. Prime Minister Suga said that Japan would reduce emissions by 46% in 2030 compared to 2013 levels. Previously, the country had pledged only a 26% cut in emissions. In addition, financial commitments were made by the UK and other countries, including the US Green Climate Fund, which will be providing financial support for developing countries dealing with the mounting environmental impact.
We can do this together across the world, and it's going to mean the richest nations coming together and exceeding the $100 billion commitment that they already made in 2009. I stress how important that is.
But the leaders of India and China, two of the world's biggest emitters, made no new commitments. Other special guests praised the motivation of the world leaders, including the Pope, who made a short appearance after delivering his Earth Day speech separately.
All of you, and I join you as well, appeal to all the world's leaders to act courageously, with justice, and always tell the truth to people, so that people may know how to protect themselves from the destruction of the planet, how to protect the planet from the destruction that very often we trigger.
The next major climate meeting for global leaders has been set in November, when they will meet for the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The first day of the Climate Change Summit was also a crucial moment for U.S. President Joe Biden, who had his first meeting with his Chinese and Russian counterparts. Though the occasion garnered much attention amid ongoing tensions between Washington and the two countries, the leaders apparently did not touch upon other issues of conflict. Kim Hyo-san has more.
Along with some 24 other global leaders, Chinese President Xi Jinping also took part in the U.S.-led Climate Change Summit, in the first meeting between the two leaders since Joe Biden's inauguration. The leaders of the U.S. and China, however, did not exchange friendly greetings, despite their first meeting garnering global attention. Stressing that this is the time to take action, President Biden pinpointed the need for the world's biggest economies to exert efforts.
No nation can solve this crisis on our own, as I know you all fully understand. All of us, and particularly those of us who represent the world's largest economies, we have to step up.
While this is seen as a message possibly aimed at Beijing, especially amid ongoing tensions between the two countries, Chinese President Xi Jinping called for the need for developed countries to help other developing countries going forward.
We need to give full recognition to developing countries' contribution to climate action and accommodate their particular difficulties and concerns. Developed countries need to increase climate ambition and action and make concrete efforts to help developing countries accelerate the transition to green and low-carbon development.
China, the largest carbon emitter globally, has underscored the need for cooperation in tackling climate change, but did not present a higher aim that can help the country achieve its pledge of carbon neutrality before 2060. Aside from the issue of climate change, President Xi did not touch upon other topics that the world's two largest countries have tensions over, including diplomacy, defense, and human rights. Following President Xi's remarks at the summit, Beijing's foreign ministry underscored that both China and the U.S. bear crucial duties, adding cooperation is key.
China and the U.S. bear important responsibilities. We're willing to strengthen cooperation with the U.S. on climate change based on mutual respect and benefit. We hope this will play a positive role in developing sound and stable bilateral relations.
Russia's president also took part in the summit despite its ongoing diplomatic tensions with Washington. In contrast to Biden, who put emphasis on the need for individual countries to act, President Vladimir Putin called for international cooperation under the U.S. initiative to tackle climate change and other environmental issues. The two-day summit is largely perceived as a crucial platform for the Biden administration to seek cooperation with countries with adversarial relationships like China and Russia that have been clashing with Washington on various issues. Kim Hyo-san, Arirang News.
And now we move on to the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea. The country on Friday reported close to 800 cases of COVID-19, the highest since early January. To fill us in with the details, Kim Yeon-sung is on the line for us. Yeon-sung, what can you tell us about this uptick in cases we're seeing today?
Mo-kyun, this could signal the start of the nationwide fourth wave of infections that has been predicted for weeks. South Korean health authorities on Friday logged 797 cases of COVID-19, the highest number of cases in 106 days. Earlier this week, we did see the numbers drop down a bit to under 600 cases a day, but Friday is the third day in a row that they've been above 700. 758 of Friday's cases were local transmissions. Major clusters include an outbreak at an adult daycare center in Bucheon, Gyeonggi-do province, where 36 people are reported to have caught coronavirus. Another cluster linked to a college dormitory in Ansan, Gyeonggi-do province has now grown to 15 infections in total. But what's more worrisome is that over the past 2 weeks, health authorities were unable to determine the infection route of almost 1/3 of the cases. This is the highest proportion of untraceable cases that the nation has seen so far. We learned early in the pandemic that contact tracing was important in prevention, and considering that there was a time when untraceable cases made up less than 10% of cases last year, preventing the spread of the virus is becoming more and more difficult. Health authorities continue to emphasize the importance of following social distancing guidelines, as one entertainment facility was caught for disguising itself as a restaurant and for illegally operating until 1:30 a.m. 83 people were charged related to the matter. We're waiting on the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure headquarters to give us more details about the day's infections. So I'll be back later with more. Back to you, Mo-kyun.
Thank you for that, Yun-sing. We appreciate it. Now, staying with the topic, India has recorded more than 310,000 new COVID-19 infections, the most any country has seen in a single day since the start of the pandemic. Some experts say a new triple mutated variant identified in the country could be behind the devastating second wave. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
India has set the world's highest single-day tally of COVID-19 infections amid its storm-like second wave of the pandemic. According to the country's health ministry, nearly 315,000 new daily cases were reported on Thursday. The record surge comes as India identified a new triple mutant COVID-19 variant. The Times of India on Thursday reported the discovery of the new variant in Bengal, the second variant to be identified after a double mutant strain was first reported weeks ago. According to scientists, the so-called Bengal strain may be more infectious than the original, impacting immune response and preventing antibodies produced by other strains or even vaccinations from protecting people against this variant. Experts have attributed the recent spike to this mutated version of the virus, but more research is yet to be conducted to validate the assumptions. India's new daily high exceeds the previous record set by the United States in January at over 307,000 cases. With the record surge, India has now a total of more than 15.9 million cases, the second highest in the world following the US. Thursday's death toll also hit new highs, jumping by more than 2,000 in 24 hours, reaching almost 185,000 deaths in total. The rapid spike in infections has led to a severe health crisis, with hospitals running out of ICU beds as well as oxygen. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
The European Central Bank has left its key policy unchanged, including its key interest rate at 0%. The decision on Thursday comes as the near-term economic outlook in the region remains clouded by uncertainty due to the resurgence of COVID-19. Lee Seung-jae has more.
As widely expected, the European Central Bank on Thursday left its key interest rate unchanged at 0%, with the marginal lending rate and deposit rate unchanged as well at 0.25% and minus 0.5% respectively. Despite clear signs of improvements, the head of the central bank noted that a resurgence in virus cases remains a concern.
Euro area financing conditions have remained broadly stable recently after the increase in market interest rates earlier in the year. But risks to wider financing conditions remain. Against this background, the Governing Council decided to reconfirm its very accommodative monetary policy stance. We will keep the key ECB interest rates unchanged,
Despite a contraction in economic activity in the first quarter, Lagarde remained optimistic that the rollout of vaccines and a gradual relaxation of virus measures should trigger a firm rebound in economic activities this year. Data also show the central bank's weekly Pandemic Emergency Purchase Program, or PEPP purchases, averaged about 16.9 billion euros in the 4 weeks following its March meeting, compared to the 14.4 billion euros in the first 8 weeks of 2021. Asked if there was a plan on phasing out the program, Lagarde said the topic was not discussed and it's premature to discuss phasing it out. The European Central Bank concluded the pandemic isn't going away quickly, referring to the economy as being on crutches, adding the bloc wasn't yet ready to stand on its own. 이승재, Arirang News.
The U.S. Senate has overwhelmingly passed a bill to combat anti-Asian hate crime. Lawmakers on Thursday approved the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act in a 94-1 vote amid the sudden rise in racist offenses during the pandemic. Republican Senator Hawley of Missouri was the only one to vote against it. The bill, introduced by Democratic Senator Mazie Hirono, will direct the Department of Justice to speed up the review of hate crimes related to COVID-19. It will also allow victims to report incidents more easily through expanded public channels. The legislation will now go to the House prior to being signed into law by President Joe Biden. The United States says it is prepared to deter any kind of aggression from North Korea. Speaking at a press briefing on Thursday, the U.S. Strategic Commander Admiral Charles Richards said the U.S. is very similar with the regime's capabilities and that they are fully confident in U.S. ability to deter it. He also highlighted the best way to resolve issues with North Korea is through diplomacy. The admiral added that the U.S. is ready to respect security commitments made to South Korea. In a statement written prior to the press briefing, he said that the regime continues to pose threats to the U.S. and its allies with its development of ICBMs. More than 26,000 Canadian troops served during the Korean War. At the Battle of Kapyong, the soldiers had one of their greatest achievements. A special photo exhibition was held to commemorate the 70th anniversary of that battle. Our Han Sung-woo takes us there.
South Korea and Canada commemorated the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Kapyong on Wednesday, remembering the Canadian veterans of the Korean War in a special photo exhibition held at the War Memorial of Korea in Seoul. Co-hosted with the Canadian Embassy, the exhibition features photos depicting the sacrifices of Canadian veterans during a key battle that prevented enemy forces from capturing Seoul.
Among them is one symbolic shot of a frontline soldier helped to an aid station by Lance Corporal William J. Chrysler, whose son was present at the exhibition.
He was just trying to find any way possible to see if he could still get over here, but unfortunately you have the COVID lockdown and pandemic. But at least I could be here to do this for him, and when he sees this, he'll feel as if he was here himself. So.
Other distinguished guests included Memorial President Lee Sang-chul, Minister of Patriots and Veterans Affairs Hwang Gi-chul, and the Canadian Ambassador to Korea, Michael Danaher.
But beyond that, I think Kapyong was in many ways the start of modern Korea. The defense of Korea was achieved, and Korea grew to be the prosperous, open, and democratic country it is. So we can all look back, both Canadians and Koreans, and those of other countries, we can look back at battles like Kapyong and see the roots of this great friendship across the Pacific Ocean.
The ambassador also praised Canada's war veterans, saying he looks forward to seeing them visit Korea again once the pandemic passes. The event follows the Canadian Embassy's publication of the Kapyong 70 photo book and will run until June 30th. The embassy plans to host additional exhibitions in cooperation with Pyeongtaek City and the United Nations Peace Memorial in Busan later this year. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
NASA's Mars helicopter Ingenuity has passed its second test flight with flying colors. According to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California on Thursday local time, the little 4-pound chopper was airborne for 52 seconds, lasting 13 seconds longer in the air than on its previous attempt. It soared up to 5 meters above the ground, and it even moved side to side about 2 meters laterally. Officials at the JPL tweeted, "Go big or go home," to celebrate the milestone. Ingenuity's success is paving the way for future ventures to Mars.
Good morning. It was a very warm start to the day in most parts of the country this morning. In fact, the parts of Jeollado and Gyeongsangdo provinces saw the warmest April morning temperatures of the season. But afternoon temperatures will not go as high as yesterday. Daily highs will be 4 to 8 degrees lower in most parts, hovering in the low 20s, but still a few notches above the norms under lots of clouds in most regions, while Gwangju will be quite warm and sunny again, topping out at 27 degrees Celsius. Air quality will improve in the afternoon, while dry weather advisories remain in place across much of the country. And those on Jeju and the south coast, you will experience strong gusts, so please be extra careful with anything that could cause a fire. The dry spell looks to last for another 5 days or so, while the warming trend continues through the weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that will do it for us at this hour on Arirang News. We'll be back at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.